This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Huddle Sports Network. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Got Lions, Michigan Wolverines, Michigan State Spartans, Detroit Red Wings, and Pistons to talk about. Let's start with the Wolverines hanging on to beat the Spartans 24-17 at the Big House. We'll get to the brawl in a second, but let's recap the game. Colston Loveland was the star of the game, 2 touchdown catches at least. But both offenses got off to a slow start, but State struck first with a Nate Carter touchdown. But second quarter, Michigan started to pick it up finally.
Yeah, they did, Taylor. You know, I will have to say, though, in terms of that slow start of the first quarter on their part, at least, they only held the ball for like 4 plays, a total of 4 plays. I believe they gained a net total of a positive of 17 yards. Total. That's it. That was their total offensive production for the entire first quarter. Otherwise, it was all MSU. They held the ball. They were getting first downs, eating up clock, just absolutely tiring out that Michigan defense. And yet, all that MSU had to show for it at the end of that first quarter was a 7-0 lead. That's thanks in large part, to Michigan's defensive line putting up a tremendous goal line stand deep in the red zone. It also speaks to the fact that even after giving up that touchdown, Michigan's defense held MSU to 3 straight punts. And I'm talking about the duration of that first half. They held them to 3 straight punts, had a strip sack by Josiah Stewart that was recovered by Kenneth Grant, who learned from his mistakes from the USC game and did not risk returning this one back. So you had that going for them from Michigan's end. From Michigan State's standpoint, I would say wasted opportunities, which was a repeated theme of not just this game, but frankly, a repeated theme of this entire season. Because you would think everything that could go wrong at the worst possible moments will go wrong. We saw the same thing happen against Ohio State. We saw the same thing happen against Oregon, and we saw it happen once again here against Michigan. How in the world did you have a delay of game penalty called on you on a 4th and goal call that essentially puts you in that field goal to begin with, and then you flat out miss it? Not to mention the fact that the aforementioned Aiden Child's fumble, which once again, while he did have an okay productive game in terms of accuracy, completion percentage-wise, and of course 189 yards and that touchdown, he still had one of the biggest plays of the game from a negative standpoint because he did not have enough awareness of the play and his surroundings to know when Josiah Stewart was coming after him, and then boom, strip sack, Kenneth Grant recovers, and Michigan took advantage, was able to close out the half rather, and snuff out any momentum that MSU was trying to build. And think about the effort that you wasted of Nate Carter, who had himself quite a show. He had 19 carries for 118 yards. He had 2 receptions for 56 yards, including a big 30-yard play on the last drive of the game for MSU when they were trying to get back down the field to try and tie it up. And they almost did. They even got inside the red zone. But once again, red zone problems have been killing Michigan State all year, and it reared its ugly head here, not finishing the drive on that last drive that could have either sent it to overtime or set up a potential 2-point conversion for the win. And despite all the fact that they got more first downs than Michigan, they made more third down conversions than Michigan. They outgained the Wolverines by almost 100 yards, 352 to 265. They had more yards per pass than Michigan on average. They had obviously, clearly, more time of possession by a whole 14 minutes plus at over 37 minutes. And you would think on paper, this could have easily had equaled out to, if not just the MSU victory, but MSU victory where they start to pull away late. Instead, it's a loss. Now, part of that goes to how Michigan, how they stood their ground and how they performed and made adjustments themselves. But also, this has to go to the fact that MSU and their coaches did not have their players ready. They did not have them prepared. Nick Marsh only has 4 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown, knowing for a fact that Will Johnson was not going to be out there for Michigan, and you don't target him enough, you don't go down the field enough. That's a bad call, bad judgment call in terms of game plan made by the MSU, by Jonathan Smith and company, because it showed that they were not up or they were not ready for this game, or they didn't take this game as seriously as the way Sharon Moore and his coaches took this game seriously, because you could tell by the way they made adjustments, by the way they were implementing this QB carousel with Davis Warren and Alex Orji. Obviously, you mentioned Colston Loveland getting his 2 touchdowns. Well, those came on a Dominic Edwards trick pass. So again, that was examples of Michigan and their coaches understanding the moment of the game and what this game represented to them and for their season. And Michigan State's, they didn't, unfortunately.
Right, and that's why Michigan won. So.
Yeah, I mean, think about this, man. Notes, 0 penalties, 0 turnovers for Michigan. That says it all. They were disciplined, well, almost disciplined, you could say, up until the very end. But still, with this victory and what it did for them, it snapped a 2-game losing streak of what they were dealing with against Washington and Illinois. It gave them their 3rd straight victory against MSU, which now means when the next time that these 2 teams meet, it's going to be well over 1,000 days, 1,300 days even, since Michigan State has last beaten Michigan in football. So if you're Michigan State, if I was a Michigan State fan, I would be embarrassed, number one, and outraged, because when you look at the metrics, you look at the stats, and you look at how that game was developing in front of your own eyes, how you let one of the worst Michigan offenses in recent memory, if not the worst of this very century, go up and down the field on you in crucial moments of the game is inexcusable. Again, this was I said this was going to be a swing game for these 2 teams. Yes, I picked Michigan to win, but I'll be honest with you, I did not have that confidence. I had the expectation that Michigan State was going to be rising to the occasion, and the way that first quarter was going, you thought, okay, my instincts were correct. But as you can see, things did not turn out that way.
Right. So Michigan is going to take on number 1 Oregon Saturday at 3:30 on CBS. Man, that's a really tough task. Remember when Michigan took on number 3 Texas, the Longhorns? The Ducks the Ducks are ranked top ranked, and they're 7-1 as a top ranked team in football all time. Ducks quarterback Dylan Gabriel is ranked 2nd in the NCAA entirely, with 175 career touchdowns, total 143 passing, and the other 32 rushing, and 18,401 total yards, 4 touchdowns away from breaking former Houston Cougars quarterback Case Keenum's record. That's a name for you. So, man, I doubt Michigan's going to pull this one out, to say the least.
Listen, what you just mentioned of the advantages that Oregon had over Michigan, that's not even taking into consideration the fact that their defense, their pass defense specifically, ranks among the nation's best when it comes to pass breakups, when it comes to getting sacks, when it comes to, offensive passer rating, yards per game, you name it. Oregon's defense is one of the best in the nation, and you're going against a Michigan offense that is absolutely inept in every way, shape of the word. They've gone through too many quarterback carousels just this season alone. Jack Tuttle just had to literally retire from the game of football. Condolences to him. Wish him nothing but the best. But the way things are looking, this is looking very eerily similar to how I think things did go against Texas. I could definitely see this happening here, and it's unfortunate because this is the first time that Oregon has been to the Big House since that infamous 2007 game when they blew the doors off of Michigan, and they were already reeling after the Appalachian State loss, and the Ducks came in and took them to Pound Town. Now, granted, you still have a Josiah Stewart who, again, as shown by his tendency to come up big in big moments, he now ranks third in the country with an average of 1.6 tackles for loss per game. He's ninth with nearly 1 sack a game. And in terms of sacks, he is the current active FBS leader with 28 sacks. So obviously him on that line with Grant, with Graham, it gives that Michigan team a fighting chance, but that's pretty much the best chance they got because Oregon on their end, they got some weapons themselves as well. You know, it's not just Dylan Gabriel that they have. They have themselves a fine running back by the name of Jordan James, for example, who represents what they can bring to you through the air and through the ground with speed and pure athleticism. You name it. You know, there's other weapons that they have that use at their disposal. Trayshawn Holden is another one. Tez Johnson is another. You know, that Oregon can just throw at this Michigan defense, whether they had Will Johnson or don't have Will Johnson. So knowing that the spread is 14.5, you're saying Michigan's a 2-touchdown underdog. I'm saying, can they, keep this close or close enough? I doubt it. Especially with Dylan Gabriel chasing history, chasing Case Keenum, and the fact that Michigan, in terms of historically against number 1 ranked teams, they're 3-16-1. The last time they got a win against a number 1 ranked team, about 40 years ago against defending national champion Miami. So yeah, all that points to
40 years ago.
Yeah, 1984.
Wow.
1984.
Hokey smokes, the year I was born.
Exactly. So now all that points to an Oregon win that I'm going to predict, unfortunately. But we gotta call a spade. We've seen how this season has gone so far. So I was even doubting that Michigan was going to beat Michigan State. They have one conceivably winnable game on the remainder of this schedule, and that's the one win that they need to get bowl eligibility. I don't see them having much of a good chance against Ohio State. I don't see them having much of a good chance in this game. And frankly, I see them having a difficulty seeing them having a good chance against Indiana, the way they've been rolling this year as well. So if you're Michigan, your best chance at this point is to see what you can do best against Oregon. If it's close, fine, make your adjustments, see what you can do to steal a win. But if it's not, and it starts to get out of hand, don't worry about it. Pull your starters because you need dudes healthy for the end of the year. See what you can do against Northwestern and against Ohio State. So I'm going to say Oregon's going to win. Oh, boy. Let's go 38-17. Michigan will get some garbage time points, but Oregon's just going to run up and down on them.
Yeah. I'm going to go Oregon 35, Michigan 20, just to be a little bit more fair. So, speaking of Indiana, the Hoosiers, undefeated at 8-0, take on the Michigan State Spartans in East Lansing at Spartan Stadium for the Brass Spittoon, Saturday at 3:30 on Peacock. Oregon and Michigan, Saturday at 3:30 on CBS, by the way. The Peacock game, yeah, Indiana. Yeah, this game is also a hands-down winner in favor of the road team, in favor of the opposing team. Mind you, Hoosiers quarterback Curtis Rourke is returning from his thumb injury that he sustained on October 19th, and his numbers are really good this year. 74.6% passing completion percentage for 1,900 14 passing yards and 15 touchdown passes plus 2 rushing touchdowns. So Indiana's best offensive weapon, in my view at least, is back. So State's going to have their hands full.
And yet, despite that, Indiana's only a 7-point favorite, only a touchdown favorite here. So if you're MSU, if you have any type of mental strength left after what you've dealt with this season, you should and must be able to learn from your previous mistakes in order to do what's necessary to get this win here. Because I do believe this is a winnable game. The way that their defense has performed this whole season, save for Ohio State against Oregon, which, by the way, that's nothing to be ashamed about, to say the least. But this is still a tough test for them because you're going against an IU team that's looking for their first 9-0 start in program history. You're going against an IU team that has, in terms of getting a jump start on their opponents, that's an understatement. They have outscored their opponents in the first quarter alone this whole season, 87-0. That's a cumulative total amount of points that IU has outscored their opponents by in the first quarter alone. So they not only know how to start well, but they know how to finish well, as evidenced by the fact that they have a margin of 101-20 in the fourth quarter in terms of that point differential. That's a solid 81. So again, when you look at those numbers, this is an IU team that is serious, means business. Their coach is a hell of a coach. He came over from a different program where last year he had a bit of an undefeated start to the season as well. Now he's bringing his magic here to the Hoosiers. And by the way, also no Jordan Turner for MSU, at least in the first half, as a result of that targeting penalty that he had suffered in the Michigan game. I know that an appeal was filed, but that had been denied. That being said, there are ways that MSU can still make this a competitive, close game. But first and foremost, they must make every single possession count. And in terms of holding on to the ball, they're one of the best in the country of doing it. They're ranked in the top 25 in terms of teams with the most time of possession. At this rank, their overall average is 31 minutes, 48 seconds. And if this were to hold, this will be the first time since 2019 that the MSU offense would have held the ball more in terms of total plus differential, more on average than the other team would have had. It speaks to how well that you are at running the ball, which we saw with Nate Carter, which we saw with how well the offensive line was doing in some instances. Well, aside from Josiah Stewart being one of the best DNs in the country. But again, nothing to be ashamed about. But it shows of when you're not turning the ball over, how much of a efficient offense you are in terms of putting together long drives that saps the defense, and keeps the other teams' potent explosive offense as limited and on the chain as much as possible. But still, you still got to make those possession counts. You got to finish those drives with points, touchdowns more preferably. If not, you're going to find yourself in a long dog battle all day.
Exactly. So I'm going to make a prediction first. I'm going to go Indiana 31, Michigan State 20. Your turn.
I'm going to say 23-20. Hoosiers get it done. They'll be very close, and Michigan State will do enough to cover.
All right. Well, Saturday at 3:30 on Peacock. I'm not sure, but I'm going to be able to catch the whole thing anyway if I could afford to pay to stream it online. But anyway, I got a Kalkaska Ballers game, the home opener at the Coliseum in Kalkaska against the Buffalo Tempest to call anyway. But anyway, you're watching the Halloween edition of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on the Huddle Sports Network. I get, as you can see on the video, if you're watching on video, I got the Riddler costume, except without the hat. Because I got the headset on. Anyway, the Lions, they The Detroit Lions demolished the Tennessee Titans 52-14 to improve to 6-1 for the first time since 1956. And it's the first time the Lions scored 50-plus points since November 27th, 1997 on Thanksgiving Day at the Pontiac Silverdome when they beat Drew Bledsoe's New England Patriots 56-27. One moment I remember back in that day, Bryant Westbrook took a pick six 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, all seriousness, back to the present. Jahmyr Gibbs, a 70-yard touchdown run. Khalif Raymond, so many long punt returns, including that 90-yard touchdown punt return. Brock Wright and Sam Laporta each getting a touchdown reception on National Tight End Day. And, of course, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs still doing things. The Trevor Nowaski interception sparked the flame for the Lions. And the rest is history. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, granted, they did have to overcome some rough early parts of the game. Calvin Ridley was having himself quite a game. I believe he had about 118 yards, reception yards, at least after the first quarter alone. But they made adjustments, whether it be moving Terrion Arnold off of him, replacing him with another guy, or giving Terrion Arnold more safety help over the top. Whatever it was, the adjustments work. And Calvin Ridley only got held to about 30 yards for the rest of the game. So that's a compliment to the defense and Aaron Glenn, obviously doing what was necessary to limit what Tennessee was doing offensively, because they were getting some good passes and they're getting some good runs with Tony Pollard, but still not enough to sustain momentum because the Lions were getting turnovers, they were getting takeaways, they were forcing punts, and they were getting magnificent field position. By the way, it also starts and helps when you have a punter the caliber of Jack Fox, who
that's almost 80 yards long. Wow.
Is already ranking amongst all-time leaders in NFL history of terms of net punt yards per average. Shows you he showcases it on display of his ability to single-handedly flip the field position. And when you are able to flip the field position against one of the worst teams in the entire league, and you have a defense that's able to still get turnovers, still get takeaways, can create some semblance of a pass rush, even, obviously not as much as you wanted to see with Aiden Hutchinson gone with injury. By the way, shout out to Hutch. Good seeing him on the big screen. They got probably the biggest pop of the entire day from the crowd.
Another win for him.
Good to see him in high spirits. Hope he heals up strong. But it did showcase what Brad Holmes has to do between now and Tuesday. And I'm not talking about the election. I'm talking about the trade deadline. He has to find a deal of some sort to get another pass rusher here. I mean, he saw the guy Bay from Tennessee doing his job here. I'm surprised he didn't try to find a way to give him an offer to keep him in Ford Field and not let him leave Detroit after the game that he was having. But you got to get someone like that, a Sedarius Smith, someone of that nature, a Trey Hendrickson possibly, who was unhappy to begin with at the start of the season when he was playing with Cincinnati. Now they're in free fall. You mean to tell me he's not as unhappy, if not more? So planets, or I would say, the moment itself is aligning for you to where this is definitely your window. But a move should be done, and a move should be made in terms of wanting to compete for a Super Bowl right now. And I think Brad Holmes has, in my belief, should shoot for that opportunity between now and Tuesday's deadline. But back to the game at hand, though, there was still a lot of positive. I did mention the takeaways that the defense got. Kirby Joseph got another interception. I believe that's his fifth this season. Fifth or sixth. I know it's him and McKinley of Green Bay, who I'll talk about in just a moment, who are among the top leaders in the NFL of interceptions, period. And even though I thought Brian Branch deserved to be named NFC Defensive Player of the Month, they did give it to McKinley. But still, it wasn't just Joseph that got involved. Nowalski, who, by the way, followed up on his game-ending sack last week against Minnesota, started this week with a nice pick interception, which was set up by some good pressure caused, I believe, it was Levi Onwuzurike. It was him. Yeah, it was by Levi Onwuzurike. And that led to, again, an example of the Lions defense making takeaways when they already had the Titans in bad field position, which leads to the excellent field position that they had consistently all day, which is why that, what they had a net positive of what, 9 yards or 9 total yards on offense, whatever the case may be. They still had 35 points in the first half. Jared Goff, even though he didn't have the big flashy numbers, he still threw for 3 touchdowns, only had 3 incompletions. The Lions as a team have had more touchdowns than incomplete passes over a 4 or 5 game stretch, better than anything that we've seen in recent or frankly all-time history in the NFL. That speaks to the efficiency of what this balanced offense that has been built, from the inside out with the right coaches in the right spots, and of course the right talent, the right skill positions, to be so efficient. But like I said, so balanced because Jared Goff, for his efforts, he earned himself Offensive Player of the Month honors from the NFC with an on average completion percentage of 80%. 680 yards, 8 touchdowns, 0 picks, about 10.5 yards per pass. So it shows you he's not throwing little dink and dunk passes and trying to cut underneath and doing check down fiesta. He's taking some shots. He's finding some shots down deep. He's finding some guys over the middle, finding good mediatory routes and passes. So he's not being, too conservative or cautious of how he's delivering the ball. He's taking some chances, yes. He's being smart. He's not forcing it, and that's led to him having a damn near passer rating of 150 for that month of October as well. And again, which speaks to the balance of this offense, why Goff is able to do so well, particularly against blitzes, even though it's been seemingly put on documented record. Hey, if you blitz Goff, good things will happen for you. Well, so far he's been eating blitzes up like it's nothing. I think that's due in part of how balanced this offense is. When you have a running back duo like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, which, by the way, the Lions now improved to 8-0 whenever both those dudes score in the same game. And Gibbs himself, you mentioned his numbers about his 127 yards and 70-yard touchdown run. Do you know that Jahmyr Gibbs leads all running backs in the NFL with most yards before contact? That's about 3.7 yards per average. That speaks to his speed and his ability of getting past the first level, getting past your blockers, getting to the second level on a consistent basis, making him such an easy handoff to on first and second down when you're trying to get some yardage or trying to break off a big home run play. So he's obviously on pace for 1,000 yards rushing. Can he get the 2,000 yards total from scrimmage? It's tough to say, but I do believe he'll easily surpass the 1,000-yard rushing mark, provided that he stays healthy, of course. But with his offensive line and Monty getting him the necessary balance, the way they're able to balance each other out on necessary give and take, leads me to believe that Jahmyr should be able to accomplish that feat with no problem. And again, total team effort, offense, defense, and special teams. You had, Cleve Raymond, what a day for him, 190 yards per, punt return yards. Had the big touchdown, had himself an offensive touchdown as well. Khalil Dorsey had himself a big punt return as well. It really speaks to how well Dave Phipp, the special teams coordinator, did and why he deserved the game ball. Is because, for example, on Leaf's touchdown run, you have your base set defense out there, which means you have guys like Anzalone, you have guys like Lee McNeil out there. You got 300-pound linemen out there blocking on a punt return, and it somehow worked itself out completely well. I mentioned Anzalone. I think he's been having himself quite a bit of a rebound, so to speak, working off rust from coming back from his concussion. I felt he had a very solid game this week. Getting a big sack on Mason Rudolph, for example, and despite the issues that are clearly prevalent amongst the defense, they still were able to hold themselves well, make adjustments, and again, they did not allow a single point after that first quarter. So they did what they were supposed to do against a team like Tennessee. They made it a business assignment. They didn't look too ahead. They didn't get into trap game territory, and they handled their business which is what you want to see from a team that is looking to be amongst the best of the league.
Yeah, and they're going to have to try to keep all that up when they head to Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers. Battle for first place in the NFC North again. Lions, last time they did that on the road against the Minnesota Vikings, Lions yanked out a 31-29 win without Aiden Hutchinson. Can they do it again in Green Bay against the Packers at Lambeau Field? The Lions are 6-1. The Packers are 6-2. Jordan Love was limited practice earlier Thursday with his groin injury that we heard of. It was just the groin injury is not too serious, but we still think he's got to be out, but we never know.
Right. You know, you never know. I think the way I've been looking at it, at latest trends, it could be a game time decision for him, depending on how things are going with his warm up and everything else. But I think the Lions should still prepare for themselves on the possibility of seeing Malik Willis at some point in this game, whether he's outright starting or just in case that Love isn't able to make it through the rest of the game or whatever the case may be, and you see Malik Willis anyway. I think that should be from their mindset of what they should be preparing themselves to face, because I don't think even face Jordan Love, he's not going to be at 100%, and which is timely for us because we're going to be missing a couple of our guys on defense. With we're already out Hutch, we may be out Malcolm Rodriguez and Josh Paschal as well. But on the flip side, Green Bay may be without their best corner in Jair Alexander because he hurt himself. He might have pulled something near the end of that game against the Jags last week. So I even saw it on the replay itself. So depending on how his status will go, that could be another key loss on Green Bay's defense. Even still, they're going to be looking for momentum. They're going to be looking for takeaways. And when you have a guy in Xavier McKinley, who, like I said before, was named NFC's Defensive Player of the Month, you have that kind of leeway, especially when you're at home and you're going to be in an environment where you're outdoors on grass, and also potentially you may be dealing with some iffy weather. I've been looking into potential forecasts for Sunday around that region, around that area. Rain could be a possibility. That's why I remember hearing Dan Campbell mention one comment in the post gamer about shoes, as in we need to have the right shoes ready because we're going up to Lambeau. We're going to be outdoors. We're going to be on grass. And oh, by the way, now we're adding in the fact that it may be raining and windy as well. Yeah, this is going to be an example of, even though the Lions are minus 3.5-point favorites, even though Jared Goff is good to go with his ankle, this is a game where you must be careful. You must take care of the ball. And I think you alleviate things by knowing, especially what the weather's going to be like, run the ball, especially knowing that you have the best offensive line in the entire league, bar none. You have the best running back duo in the league, bar none. And oh, by the way, you have an offensive sicko in Ben Johnson that can call up different types of plays, gadgets, screens, reverses, you name it, that can go up against whatever type of pressure or schematics that Green Bay tries to bring. Because remember, we saw how he's able to do in that chess match against Brian Flores. It'll be hard to believe that he couldn't replicate a similar, type of performance here against Green Bay. So while I'm expecting tough environment, tough territory like I expected against Minnesota, this team has shown that they're willing to meet the challenge, willing to meet the expectation of the difficulty of the moment. And even though the defense, like I said, is weaker on in theory and on paper, with the injury to Hutchinson and also the injuries to other players in key spots too, they're still giving their effort. They're still getting takeaways, and they're still holding stops in key moments. They're still showing improvement from where they were last year and the year before that. And that should be a credit to Aaron Glenn and this coaching staff for doing what was necessary. It's a give or take game on the road, division game. First place in the division is on the line, and also potentially the Lions trying to keep pace with that road towards the number one seed and home field advantage. That's on the line in a sense in this game as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Lions should have to run the ball for most of the game in that weather. It goes both ways, especially with when you have David Montgomery, Knuckles, and Jameer Sonic Gibbs as your two top running backs, of course, both star running backs. And of course, Ben Johnson, he'll have to keep up his great play calling like he usually does, and like he has done as of late. I believe I believe the Lions' offense can keep it up. The question is their defense. Can they hold the Packers?
It'll be interesting to see because we know what Green Bay's been able to bring with Jordan Love, with how he's been able to move the ball, get things out to his weapons and his guys, whether it be a Christian Watson, for example, or a Jaden Reed on the other. He also has a Josh Jacobs that he can hand the ball off to and get some yards and get some necessary touchdowns if possible. So Green Bay has themselves a bit of a balanced offense themselves. It may not be as potent as Detroit's, may not be as high scoring and as flashy as Detroit's, but it is a good chance. And in a game like this, you are a home dog, but it's only give or take a field goal. Anything could happen, and it'd be quite interesting the game, especially knowing so much is on the line too.
Yeah, but I'm going to take the prediction first again. I'm going to say Lions 30, the Packers 27.
Interesting. The Lions getting 30 points again. It'll be interesting to see if they can do that in this weather. I believe they can, provided they take care of the ball, but that will be a challenge. That ball might be slippery. That field may be in bad conditions. So knowing that, I'm going to temper my expectations. Whew. I'll be honest. I was rolling the dice a little bit because I thought there was a good chance that the Lions were going to lose against Minnesota, and the way things started, I thought my prediction was going to hold up. Granted, they still fought back and came back and won. But I can see some elements of that playing out here. I hope to be wrong on this one, but I think my gut is telling me Green Bay is going to be looking to be making a statement this year for themselves. And regardless of if Jordan Love is playing or not, they're going to be looking to be playing some inspired ball. I would not be surprised to see their defense make a big play or two to get that home crowd riled up. And knowing that, I think Green Bay is going to pull out the upset here in terms of betting spread and whatnot. Because let's not forget, though, the Lions have won 4 of the last 5 games. It's been 2 seasons now since the Packers have beaten the Lions at Lambeau. That's almost inexcusable, almost unheard of in this day and age. That would be like Ohio State losing 2 or 3 straight home games to Michigan at the shoe. Please. I just can't see that happening. So I'm going to go with the Packers. I'll say they get it done. Let's go 28-24.
By 4 points, okay. By a little bit more than a field goal. Like, still a half a touchdown, but...
Well, the Lions are the favorites, but Green Bay is going to... Green Bay, I'm picking them to win outright, not just cover, but win outright.
All right, well... Lions, Packers, Sunday at 4:25 on Fox. I'm going to have that set to record. I'm going to work at Samaritas 4 to 8.
Nice. We're getting the Brady treatment again.
Yep. Yep. Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olson on the call on Fox, Aaron Andrews as well, and Tom Brady. Man, the Red Wings, they won 3 straight prior to our last episode, and then they lose 2 straight. They lose to the Buffalo Sabres 4-3 in regulation at KeyBank Arena last Saturday. And then they return home. They take on a really tough Winnipeg Jets team, but 6-2 at home. Jets took that one. They outscored the Red Wings 3-0 in the third period. The Red Wings now are 4-5-0, still with 8 points. I know it's a tough Winnipeg Jets team, but I thought the Red Wings just fell flat in the third period.
They've been flat this whole season so far. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. The way they've been able to look on defense, their inconsistencies with the goaltending, not being able to generate enough offensive presence in terms of on even strength. Forget power play. They're not even getting stuff done on even strength, and it's just embarrassing to look at, especially with how they finished things last season. You would think, okay, season of raised expectations. Derek Lalonde has no that as well as other potential hotbed or his seat becoming hot to an extent if things are not going well, and then yet they still start the season like this. It's frankly inexcusable.
Yeah. And they
And
traded defenseman Ole Mata to the Utah Hockey Club in exchange for a 2025 third round pick. I'm trying to look at Jake Woman's stats for the San Jose Sharks compared to when he last played for the Red Wings.
I think he had like what back-to-back games of at least five of multiple points or something to that effect. He had like 5 or 6 points in 2 games.
Yeah, against
Uh,
the Sharks, or for the Sharks rather,
how
compared to
convenient.
yeah. There goes another one of Eisenman's signings, and another in Mata. The Red Wings rematch with the Buffalo Sabres Saturday at 7 at Little Caesars Arena on FanDuel Sports Network Detroit. And then they head to United Center to face off with the Chicago Blackhawks at 8 on TNT. And then next Friday, they go to Toronto, Scotiabank Arena, to face off with the Toronto Maple Leafs in another annual Hockey Hall of Fame meeting at 7 back on FanDuel Sports Network Detroit. So the Blackhawks still are rebuilding. The Buffalo Sabres, they beat the Red Wings, like I mentioned, 4-3 at KeyBank Arena. We'll see. And the Red Wings are home against the Sabres in a rematch. That rematch. It's been an interesting series. Each game on the scoreboard between the Red Wings and Sabres, but the way the Red Wings have been playing this season, I don't like their chances
They
this
look
this week.
lifeless. They look lifeless, and I agree with you on that, Taylor.
Yep. Hey, at least the Pistons finally get their first win of the regular season, 105-95 over the Philadelphia 76ers at Wells Fargo Center back on Wednesday night. Jaden Ivey, 23 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Kate Cunningham, I think 22, 26 points. But anyway, 5 turnovers. Kate Cunningham can score big every game. But the thing is, his flaw is committing turnovers. He has a pro in scoring and a con in turning the ball over. So Kate's just got to work on being smarter with the basketball.
And it also may come down to a situation to where, if you look at how this roster is constructed and how certain players may perform better in certain instances, you may have to get yourself a different point guard in a sense, or a different ball handler in a sense of letting Cade and Ivy, or at least in Cade's sense, let him work more off ball, not have to worry so much of trying to facilitate everything, be the main center point of everything, because the way that the roster is currently constructed, even though he's trying to develop the chemistry with Ivy, yes, he has the presence of a Tobias Harris as a veteran wing to lean on. It's still more or less just a similar version of what we saw last year, just with more spacing on the floor. So I think if you do get another guard in that lineup to balance things out, or at least balance out the makeup on the floor of having Cade being as effective as he can, but more off ball, that would save him some energy and make him less prone to as the turnovers that we're seeing currently. Because it's not just him as a problem; it's the whole team in general. They've been averaging over 16 turnovers a game so far this season, and that's one big reason why you're now just getting to your first win.
Yep.
Not just that, but they're also low in assist rate as well. Just only 22 assists per game. Now, I'll give them credit. Their defense plays a little bit better with like, for example, with Beef Stew, with Isaiah Stewart on the floor. They play a little bit better as a team offensively with Cade and Ivy together, as opposed to one trying to take on the mantle and the other trying to lead this unit. I think it just works better if you put your best players on the floor, have the right lineup and the right game plan of how to better protect the ball, and we go from there, because you have spacing, you have shooters. You're one of the more adequate, I would say, 3-point shooting teams in the league. You're one of the better free throw shooting teams in the league. It's just a matter of taking care of the orange. And once you have better basketball security, more of those wins will come.
Yep. And Isaiah Stewart, I want to touch on him real quick before we wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah Stewart is third in the NBA in offensive rebound percentage, 15.4% behind Isaiah Jackson at 15.7%, and Kevon Looney, 21% flat. Both Stewart and Jalen Duren are in the top 10 in total offensive rebounds this season.
So Stewart proving his worth and his presence of being a underrated but reliable rim protector and rebound snatcher.
Exactly. They'll need him and Duren to keep that up. So, what all did we learn in this episode? Riddle me that.
We learned that Michigan was able to salvage their season for now. And we also learned that Michigan State, at least for this season, was not ready for the moment. They've repeatedly proven themselves to showcase that multiple times throughout the course of the season, and it reared its ugly head again in this game against Michigan. Now they have to wait another year for another chance at beating their arch rival, with another ugly incident at the end of a game to mar that in between. As for Michigan, what I've seen and said before about their offense and about their team, it does not change now. I don't see them having a good shot against Oregon. I don't see them having a good shot against Ohio State, and I barely see them having a good shot against Indiana. If you want to put yourself in position to be in the bowl game, your best chance at this point is against Northwestern of all teams. So there's that. In terms of what else that we learned that the Red Wings are not. They're just not together right now. They're not together as a unit, as a team. They're not showing any cohesiveness, and it's been
not behind head coach Derek Lalonde.
Exactly, and it's been evident in how they've conducted themselves in the start of this season. And as for the Pistons, granted, yeah, they're finally. It seems like they're on the learning patch, that we should have expected to see last year. But there's still some things that it just reminds you too much of old habits still popping up. The unnecessary turnovers, the high, the low team assist rate. Cade Cunningham, for example, trying to do too much. But with some things, like you mentioned before, with defense better with Isaiah Stewart on the floor, him and Duren getting rebounds, and Cade and Ivy playing better together and separately. Ivy. Yeah, Cade and Ivy. Cade Cunningham.
Okay. Yep, sorry.
With both of them, playing together, it sets up the Pistons to where, it's still going to be a rough patch, growing pains type of season, but you can still be confident in saying they can get some more wins this year than they had last year. And for the Lions, great job handling business, made sure that this business assignment came through with no embarrassments, no injuries, and a clear focus for Green Bay. I think they did that on those three check boxes, and on three facets of the game itself. And as for this upcoming game against Green Bay, it's very similar to Minnesota. I would love it if they pull out the victory, especially what it represents for them within the division, because this is a nasty division in terms of combined record of the teams within and point differential that each team has displayed against the rest of the league, and their record against the rest of the league. I wouldn't be surprised to see 3, if not all 4 teams from the division make the playoffs or contend for a playoff spot in some capacity. So really, within this division and these divisional games, money is going to be earned of not just where you're seated in the playoffs, excuse me, not just whether or not you win a division, but where you are seated in the playoffs. Specifically, if you're the Lions and you're gunning for that number 1 spot. So this is don't get it twisted. This is very much a big game in terms of long scheme, grand picture of what you're trying to do. Get back to the NFC Championship game, but have it in front of Ford Field, knowing that you need to win just 2 games this time to get to the Super Bowl instead of 3. The way to do that is to get home field advantage in the number 1 seed. The way to do that is to try and win games like you did against Minnesota and what you got to do here again against Green Bay.
Yep, exactly. And that's all we've learned on this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications of the bell icon. Watch each of our episodes in full to help improve our public watch hours. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker and join its supporters club. Follow me on X, TikTok, and Instagram and YouTube at DT2Phillips. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube at EdSmith313. Business endorsements go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation, Best Buy with Geek Squad in Traverse City, Cali Tickets. Call 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. Got one just in time before dressing up at this Riddler Halloween costume. Batman Forever. Riddle me this, riddle me that. Family Healthcare Dental Center in Cadillac. I have 2 appointments in December. Hooters of Saginaw. It's a Denise Jewelry in Lake City. Let's roll with it. Rolled ice cream. Their flavor of the week this week is Monster Mash. Wonder what that tastes like. Like them on Facebook. Follow them on TikTok at The Food Mafia LLC and on Instagram at The Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream. Northern Auto Lab in Lake City. I'm going to get new tires as a Christmas gift from Northern Auto Lab, I believe. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac, 231-884-8195. And on Facebook, reserve your booking for next spring, summer, and fall. Pro Quality Cleaners of Cadillac, the Raven Social Restaurant on South Mitchell Street in downtown Cadillac. Union Barber in Birmingham and Ferndale. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield. And Wellbeing with Catherine Palms. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation of the Huddle Sports Network. We'll be back next Thursday night at midnight or later to recap Lions-Packers, talk about Jamison Williams' developing news. Of course, we'll recap Michigan, Oregon, Michigan State, Indiana, and we'll cover the Red Wings and Pistons as well. And if anything else pops up on the Tigers especially, we'll touch on them too. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips signing off. But remember, we always observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Stay on the lookout. Hit them with a hind. Happy Halloween.
Take care, everybody. Be safe. Happy Halloween. Go vote. Vote now. Vote as early as you can. And please vote on Tuesday.
Exactly.
Peace, y'all.
Ta-ta.